Welcome to the Trading Psychology and Mindset podcast. My name is Ash Playstead and I am your host. I'm an avid student of human nature as well as being an active trader myself for the past 25 years. This show is all about training the mind you bring to trading into the mind you need for long-term trading success. Now, what have I been denying about myself that is being revealed in my trading accounts? Now, the way trading is often presented to people as they're looking into it and saying, is this a career path that I want to follow? Is what's ignored, or at the very best given scant attention, is the trader's mindset. People get really caught up in saying, I know this is a probability thing. I truly know that. But if I follow certain rules and if I do all of this stuff, everything's going to be fine. So what we see is denial on full display. And yet what we discover is that mental self-mastery, that is the missing link. So let's dive into this episode and learn some more. Plenty of people know how to trade. In fact, I often think I could train a monkey on a stick how to trade. Many people have that technical analysis down. There's 1,000 coaches, educators, and advisors who teach how to trade really well. So you've got rules, and if we lived in a perfect world, everything would be functional. Everybody would be making money. But, and there is a big but, our performance under pressure exposes a trader's belief system, the mindset that they're actually bringing into the moment of managing uncertainty. That's when things blow up, because ultimately there's a huge difference between paper trading, where there's no risk, and real trading, where there is risk, real, tangible, palatable risk, of where you're putting real money at risk to an uncertain outcome and you may lose. As a matter of fact, in trading, what you discover is there is, in fact, a high likelihood that you're going to lose any given trade. So, what you're really doing in trading is you're actually seeing the beliefs you have about your ability to manage uncertainty being revealed and projected onto the screen, onto the markets. That's what you're really doing. It's kind of like what you find in trading. Once you grasp this and you start noticing there's a gap between your knowledge and the way you perform in paper trading and your actual performance under pressure. And that's when you begin to realize, aha, what have I been denying about myself that I need to look at and is being revealed in my trading account? This is the key moment of realization of the potential pivot point in your trading. And this is the moment to step into what I would call active contradiction, where your existing beliefs, the ones you bring with you, come into conflict with your new trading psychology beliefs. And I've spoken about this multiple times, that your trading account doesn't lie. It's the ultimate truth meter, but your brain does. And if you don't have the trading account there, I would guarantee you that your brain will create all sorts of alibis, lies, explanations, stuff like that, that keep you stuck in the mind you brought to trading. So let's have a look at the real problem. And the real problem is that the mind that you brought to trading, which we'll talk more about in a few moments, isn't prepared for trading. When you're paper trading, pretty much what you're doing is you're playing a video game. It's easy to be fearless and emotionally detached in a video game, right? Because after all is said and done, whether you're killed or not, you can always hit the reset button and then you get to go again. You get a do-over. Now, in real trading, the huge difference is there's no reset button, no do-over, and real money disappears from your account when you take a loss, and it triggers the primitive emotional brain into instinctual responses to threat. And there's the kicker, okay? Ultimately, whether you like it or not, the emotional brain, which I often call the caveman brain, is your silent partner. It's always with you. And this is where it can get really crazy, is that the emotional brain is looking to solve the problem of short-term survival. It doesn't know about money or any of that sort of stuff. It's simply looking for short-term survival, and that's all it's looking for. And it doesn't care how it solves it. So to give you an example, let's say you take a loss, okay? And then you take another loss. And the next time you take a series of losses. This is really building up the need of the limbic system to be able to build an emotional response to the threat of loss. And that's the way the primitive brain sees it. And it may take several different directions. The first one, pretty obvious one, is that it can stop you from getting into the trade itself. And if it can do this, it's won. It's not thinking about long-term probability, it's thinking about immediate survival probability. And if you don't get in the trade risking capital, you're not a threat to yourself, so it just wipes you out. And that would be what we would call the flight part of fight flight, avoidance of fear. On the other hand, what you can also see is the aggression of anger, right? That's the fight part of fight flight. You take a loss, you get a little peeved. You take another loss, and all of a sudden, you're going to make that money back, right? You're going to show them, you're going to make the markets pay. And what you're really doing is you're saying, that saber-toothed tiger that's attacking my clan, I'm going to make him pay. I'm going to show him. I'm not going to be afraid. And I'm into attacking mode. I'm going to use my spears. Some men and I are going to attack him. That's the way the primitive brain still thinks. That hasn't really changed in millions of years. Now, when you get all grown up, all of a sudden, that primitive brain is trading in the modern world. When it sees a loss, it's instantly back in caveman days. It's back with the saber-toothed cat. And that's what you've got. That's what you're dealing with. So the key here is to go, okay, I've got an emotional brain. The limbic system, that caveman brain, that is going to act on instinct. And that instinct is really a problem solution in an instant situation where it becomes a habit. It becomes an automatic habit, what you might want to call a reflex, that's running underneath the radar of your thinking brain. It doesn't even know the thinking brain's there. And it's like, poof, and it's just like that. It's that quick. So ultimately, the very first thing that's going to have to happen is you're going to have to learn how to intervene and cool down the circuitry of that caveman brain and redirect the emotional flow. Now, I teach emotional regulation because what I know and what we know in neurobiology, the science of this, is that the emotion itself is biological. So from that neuro standpoint, an emotion is what we would call a biological action potential, a BAP, and has nothing to do with psychology. It's a biological action potential that takes over the mind in its attempt to coordinate action with the environment, to stay alive in the environment. So you've gotten that, right? And you say, okay, the first thing I have to do is I have to regulate that emotion. And to do that, we focus on breathing as a function of the emotion and on muscle tension also as a function of the emotion. And is what is generally known as the relaxation response. You may have heard of this before. What you learn is that you can disrupt the stressor, the trigger, the threat. That's, oh my God, I might lose, or I have to make up prior losses, right? You can disrupt it and you can say, guess what? I can supply the relaxation response instead. It's because breathing diaphragmatically, which is down into your belly, causes you to calm down. It interrupts the biology of the emotion. Anger and fear require a restriction in the way you breathe. And suddenly you breathe shallow and fast, or you hold your breath and you get tense. You're getting ready, right? This is your body preparing for action. That is what's going on. So what happens in the relaxation response, emotional regulation, you are regulating the intensity of the emotion so that it doesn't flow over and become that feeling state and take over your mind. But that's only the start. And it's not nearly enough. What's required next is mindfulness, where you literally begin to build the observer of the self. And what you discover in mindfulness right off the bat is that you and your thoughts are not the same. You are not having thoughts. They're actually having you. And you don't have beliefs. They're having you and creating your experience. I often say, we don't see and then believe. We believe and then see. And that's the deal here, right? You begin to observe that and you begin to say, wow, what I am is a particular organization of my potential that the limbic system created as a surviving force in the environment. Yes. And it did a great job in another time and another place. And it was key to human survival, right? And the domination of the species on this planet. But the problem in trading in particular is that trading is a bad place to use the certainty of survival as your basic modus operandi. Okay, it has to become a probability based mind, and therein lies the trouble. But the thing about mindfulness and the observation of self is you begin to see at the self, this thing you call you, is actually an organization of your potential that was done in another time and another place for short term survival. And it's done a great job. Now it's hooked into habit on an instinctual level. It automatically fires without thinking brain approval, and it wipes out the thinking brain. It takes over your psychology, it takes over your reason and rationality. And there you are making all those dumb, stupid mistakes that you say, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? This is a probability game. And this is where the denial is a problem. Well, guess what? Nobody told caveman brain that, and he is not listening, or she's not listening. So, what we really want to do then is we begin to see the self as potential, not as a fixed and final form. And what we're recognizing is that potential got shaped in a particular way that we need to deconstruct so that we move the self back into this moment of being, where you begin to be the designer of the mind you're bringing and building to bring to engage uncertainty. That's when it gets interesting, right? Now, is this natural? No. Is it possible? Yes. But you really, truly have to begin to say, well, what are the potentialities? What is, in fact, possible? Well, let's look at a couple of things here, right? And the way I teach this is in the organized self that you are, that you bring to trading. What we're looking for is fear-based thinking, anger-based thinking, greed-based thinking, and particular lust-based thinking, right? These are the things that we're looking for. And you would know lust. It's not like the intimate arousal, but you would know it as jumping into things, wanting money. And you really begin to say, oh my God, I just had so much. I just jumped into trade, right? You had to do it, right? That is lust playing out, right? And what you're saying is, okay, it's not natural, but this is what nature did to me, what I've inherited. It's allowed me to survive, but it's not allowing me to thrive in the probability world of trading. So we want to reorganize that panel of the mind, that task force we all have in our head. And what I ask of you is to begin to think of your mind as not some singular unit. Okay, you've all had that experience of that inner commentary that's kind of just yakking away in the background, having opinions, having assessments, judging us, mostly negative about potentialities. Well, that's part of the mind, but that's not you. That's just one element, one committee member of the panel of that mind. And there is so much more. And besides the limbic ways of anger, fear, lust, and greed, there's also the potential to organize the mind around discipline, around courage, around self soothing, and around impartiality when it's exposed to stress. That's the task force. That's the mind we want to create and utilize. And you can do that. There will always be struggle, okay? Nothing can change about that part. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be the challenge of losing and winning. However, what you have control over is the mind you bring to the engagement of that uncertainty. This is the struggle. That's where the work is. Past memories, past experiences will always present themselves, but we are going to train our brain and the mind that it generates to redirect to a new task force, a new reflex. Always there, right? There will always be challenges, whether or not in trading or in regular life. That is the nature of life. And there will be challenges that you can't control the outcome of, but you can control the mind that engages them. That is the message. You can control the performance mind that leads to the probability based mind. This is the future. This is where success is found for all successful long term traders. You can start building a future self, a potential self that is very radically different in the way that it approaches uncertainty. This is where we acknowledge, uncover, and acknowledge what we've been denying about ourselves, and we face up to it and we start working on building that new self. So you still have that old historical mind, the one that you brought. That is not going to work in trading. It's going to still be there. But you can choose to build a new potential mind, okay? This is not just possible. This is the path that must be followed. Okay. Now, that's the future. Is it going to happen overnight? No. But with training, with support, with mentoring, okay, you can see the future. You can start organizing yourself for that future and organizing the mind that you bring to performance for that future. And before you know it, you can habituate those responses to uncertainty, these new ones that you're training, rather than the historical ones that evolution gave you. You have to become a designer of the self. Okay. Now, this is the training that is required. Okay. And I invite you to look at it, to take this deeper and to really begin to see, okay, this is about recognizing who I am, moving past the denial, recognizing who I am in the current form of the self, and then recognizing who I can potentially be when I learn how to rebuild the self. Yep, that's it. That's what we're talking about, friends. And as you move into this new year, I ask you to really begin to think about this is really about mind state and really building it so that it's built for uncertainty, and to recognize that's the difference between knowledge and actual experience and performance, about operating functionally from the new self, not just the romanticism of thinking about it, which is where I started this discussion. Thinking about it and feeling about it is different to actually designing it. So we've got to move past that romanticism, right? Move past trying to convince yourself and your brain to make the change, right? It takes time, effort, and discipline to install. You're up for this, okay? This is the path to follow. All the knowledge in the world isn't going to get past the instinctual nature of your emotional brain that has been evolving on this path for 6.5 million years. You're not going to get past that through romanticizing and imagining being different. You've actually got to train yourself, but you can build this new potential self rather than the one you got stuck with to bring into trading, no matter how successful it was in the past. And it's always your choice. I'll repeat that. It's always your choice. Thanks for joining me, friends, in this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it and found value. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Trading Psychology and Mindset Show.